And welcome back to Jeff Quinange live here at Citizen Television. On the bench tonight, it's the Firebrands. They may be backbenchers, but I'm telling you, these MPs are outspoken. Kiaro MP Ndindi Nyoro is in the house, as is Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino. Gentlemen, let me start with you, Ndindi, real quick. Look, why are you so uneasy with your party? Since, it's not so long ago, you were the blue-eyed boy of UDA. Kwani kuliendaje?
Jeff, I think you should ask the party that, because I think it's the party that deviated. Because when we were campaigning and I had a chance even to come here to sell our agenda, I think the party wholesome is the one that has deviated from what we were to do. I've spoken on several things, but the primary ones is around the economy. We told Kenyans that we are not going to borrow the kind of money we are borrowing now, that we'd go through on borrowing, because for sustainable development, it's not just about spending now, but also about the future of our economy. Also, we were to give education the primacy it deserves. I don't think now that party is doing what we sold to the Kenyan people, and especially when it comes to the funding for in terms of education. And holistic things like, for example, what you are doing in terms of dissent. People are having alternative voices, as we have seen, especially with the young people, what has been happening. So I think once you get the representatives of the party, it's good that you pose that question to them, because I still believe in the same things we sold to the Kenyan people, and I believe they are the right things to do, whoever is in power.
Are you disappointed then with your party?
I am disappointed, and especially on the same things I've told you about. I am very keen about the economy, because for all the countries that we may admire to be like, all of them, the Asian tigers, the Western countries, what makes the country to be categorized as progressive is how it performs in terms of the economy. And we have not been doing very well. And let me give you just so that you see, and especially between what is sold and what I think we should be doing. Whatever you do economically speaking, the outcomes speak for themselves in terms of the figures. And I'm saying that because I have been seeing that we are investing too much on PR, selling a story, other than just doing the work to speak for itself. The economy of Kenya is growing at 4.9% this year, last year actually of 2025. The figures are still being corroborated, but that is the projection. But if you judge Kenya based on the region, Uganda is growing faster than us. It will grow between 6 and 6.5% in the year 2025. Tanzania is growing faster than us. Rwanda, can you believe this, Jeff?
Go on.
Rwanda in the year 2025 Q3, quarter 3, they grew by double digit, over 10%.
What?
And the overall growth of Rwanda will be 7 to probably 9%, as the figures are being corroborated by the various agencies. So I believe that whatever you do in the small bits, you still get betrayed by the figures. Let me also give some figures in terms of Kenya, comparative to Kenya of the past. And let me compare the three regimes that has been there. When President Mwai Kibaki took over in 2003, our GDP in dollar terms was around $19 billion. In his first 3 years, let me compare 3 years because we are in our it is now in the third year. The economy went up to $26 billion, which was a 36% increment in 3 years. When President Uhuru took over in the year 2013, the economy grew from $61 billion to around 64. That was around 21% growth in 3 years. When we took over, the GDP of Kenya was around $114 billion. The projection up to end of 2025, it will be $131 billion. That is 14.9%. Now, to bring it home in terms of, we use NEC exams. You can times by 2 for us to have the mental comparison in terms of NEC. It means President Kibaki's 3 years, if you times by 2, is 72%. You'll tell me what next says about 72%, what grade it is. 21% of President Uhuru is around 42%. If you times by 2. If you times 14.9% by 2, it is apparently 29%. You'll tell me what grade that is in terms of...
That's an F.
Is that what?
It's an F.
Is that what, Jeff? Please.
I said it's an F.
I need to know well. So what I'm trying to say, we all want Kenya to progress, and that is why we keep on giving alternative voices. But for Kenya to progress, we have to start on the basis of reality and truth. So that when we tell Kenyans we are going this direction, and the economy is growing, I don't need to buy a tarubeta. Even whispers will speak loud. That is why I'm disappointed.
Okay, Babu, same thing with you and ODM. You know, you seem to be very close to... You're Baba's boy. Baba, there's never an occasion where you got up and didn't praise Baba to no end. And yet, you're still outside the tent, man. You know, what's up?
Jeff, I must tell you that deep down my heart, I loved Baba and I still love Baba. Actually, Baba, there's no any other leader in this country that I will love the way I loved Baba. We suffered together. We campaigned together. I went to 280 constituencies out of 290 constituencies because of Baba. I was the first person to have been abducted in this government, and they disappeared with me for 3 good days because of the love that I had for Baba. We were beaten at Soi, the chopper that was stoned. We were almost dying in that chopper because of my love for Baba. I was doing mobilization for Baba in Nairobi. So I was Baba's boy, I was Baba's right-hand man, I was Baba's errand boy. And that is the love that I had for Baba. And Jeff, our Baba, passed on, quite unfortunate. It was a sudden death that we are still mourning up to date. And Jeff, because of that, the general is dead. Long live the general, but the dream is still alive. The fact that the general is dead, Jeff, then we need to ask ourselves a simple question in ODM, that what kind of a general do we need to take after Baba? Do we need the weakest general, or do we need the strongest general, or do we need a parachuted general? Our Moses is gone, and when Moses was leaving, he left at Mount Nebo, then handed over to Joshua. The next question we must ask ourselves, Jeff, is that do we need a Joshua who is Moses' age mate, or who is older than Moses, or a Joshua who is younger than Moses? The answer is simple, Jeff. We need a Joshua who is younger than Moses, a Joshua with the vim, with the vigor, with the courage, with the temerity to take the people that Baba left to Canaan, because we've already seen Canaan. And I will come back and talk about Canaan versus Singapore, because Baba left us telling us to go to Canaan. Now we are being diverted to go to Singapore. The distance between Singapore and Canaan is 7,800 kilometers. People keep on saying that they dreamt, that Baba sent them a dream. And Baba, we've not even been told by our great mom, Mama Ida Odinga, that Baba has sent him a dream, sent her a dream, sorry. But people are saying the way they've dreamt 7, 8 times about Baba, what Baba said. But why can't they say that Baba told us to go to Canaan and not to Singapore? I want to tell you one thing, Jeff, that in the book of Joel, 2 verses 28, the Bible says clearly that old men will dream dreams, but young men will see the vision. That means that for you to dream dreams, you must be asleep. You must be at comfort zone. You must be at rest. Therefore, our old men are now at comfort zone and at rest. They are at rest because of the wars that they fought and brought it this far. They are at rest because of the sweat, the toil, and the moil. Because they fought for this nation. And it is time for them to hand over the baton to the young generation who are seeing the next future who are seeing the generation, who are seeing for the next generation, who are seeing the future, that those young people will change this nation, will ensure that the high cost of living goes down, will ensure that overtaxation is no longer there in this nation, will ensure that employment is given to our young men and women, will ensure that quality education and affordable is given to our children, equal to healthcare. And that, when the time for the young men to hand over riches once they become old, they will also hand over to other young men and women who will ensure that the dream is kept alive.
Okay.
And Jeff,
go on.
Current ODM that we have
does
not talk about what Baba stood for. Baba never went to look for coalitions. Baba never went to look for other parties. Other parties came to look for Baba. This that we are going to look for is a different ODM. So therefore, the leadership of ODM must ensure that they stand with what Baba believed in.
And you feel they're a little twisted, a little...
what I will tell you,
off course, kidogo.
They are off course. That leadership, they don't like the young people. And I want to tell you, again, in the book of 1 Timothy 4, verses 12, says clearly that do not allow yourself to be despised because you are a youth.
Yeah.
But show, by good example, by love, show the good work that you can do to the
Ndindi, real quick, Babu just mentioned Singapore a moment ago. And you are a numbers man. You know your numbers. And you just mentioned it briefly a short while ago that you have to stick to your vision. Is Singapore a reality or is it a diversion?
Let me answer it this way. In economics, just to bring it in terms of real life, if, for example, you are a banana farmer, you compare how well you want to do banana farming with another banana farmer. You can't compare your yield using, let's say, oranges or pears. What am I trying to say? Every time you want to champion a cause like any other country economically, there are things that you look for. And that's why I believe the whole thing is like the one we sold about this versus the other. And because the time is nearing, creativity now have to jump in with another of such. And this is the reason I gave the example of bananas and the rest. Economically speaking, when you want to compare an economy and you want to do like that economy, you look at the homogeneity of those economies. You look at, are these things even the same in many dynamics? The GDP per capita of that country is around, and I don't want to even get into that political sloganeering, so you allow me to use that reference. It's around 90,000 US dollars.
GDP?
No, GDP per capita, per person. Ours is around 3,000, but that's not even the point. The point is that how the economies are fashioned. The economy of Singapore is fashioned very differently from how the economy of Kenya is fashioned. Number one, in terms of the involvement of the state in terms of the economy. If, for example, you check at SGX, the Singaporean stock market, you take the top 10 companies, you realize that Temasek, one of the entity of government that owns stakes in other companies, they are very dominant in terms of ownership. Because Singapore, in its start, as much as it was promoting private side of the economy, the government was also very heavy in terms of state capitalism. So the economy actually that is very close to what Kenya should be, if we actually mean to emulate a country, it is actually South Korea. Because if you look at the size of that country you mentioned vis-a-vis Kenya, totally off, even a county in Kenya is bigger in terms of geographical size, population-wise, and the same. If you compare the same with a country, for example, South Korea, more or less, our ideals economically bled more with South Korea. Our population is in the 50 millions. South Korea is in the 50 millions. Our country, our aspiration is to promote private sector-driven capitalism. And that is why we keep on divesting from government stakes. If you look at South Korea, that is what it advanced, and especially from the rule of General Park, where the economy was so involved in growing private enterprise that they had to create a cadre of companies called chaebols. You see, for example, my phone, here Samsung, LG, Hyundai, those are brands from South Korea.
Yeah.
But they were created by a deliberate government policy. Why? Because they wanted these companies, which would become behemoths, to be the pinnacle of the supply chain of supporting SMEs in South Korea, etc., etc., etc. That's point number one on how the economies are organized. There is something very important also that Kenya has to give critical thinking on. It's something called FDI. If you look at the Asian tigers in generality, because our aspiration is to grow Kenya, you realize that majority of the economies, including China, they don't just grow using internal resources. Most of these companies actually grow using other people's money. If you just try to think about any company, for example, in Singapore, take, for example, DBS Bank, Keppel. If you go to South Korea, you take others. You go to China, take any BYD. You realize there is, in all those, what I'm trying to make, because I'm trying to just jump into the point because of time. If you check in all those companies, and many others have not mentioned, you see something very peculiar. For BYD to be BYD that we know, they actually grew on American money. At some point, Berkshire Hathaway was an investor. If you check Alibaba, there was foreign money. But now when you come to Kenya, and especially policy making, and I've been there, I have seen it. I'm speaking from experience, given my other
chairmanship budget.
Yes.
Yes.
Many times we confuse FDI and remittances. We want to sell a story to Kenyans about money that is coming to Kenya, and especially from Kenyans who are working abroad. Yep. Remittances are consumerism driven. FDI is investment driven. The other point, I'm just trying to give a highlight. You look at Kenya, and you look at the countries we want to emulate, you want to look at the dynamism of those economies. And you realize ours is very haphazard. If you look, for example, at Japan that started to grow around Asia, they started with having labor-intensive industries. And there was a reason. Because you mop up unemployment, you solve a social problem, but you also give people a chance to be a resource. And then you upgrade. You go to a skill-intensive kind of industry or economy. Then you go to capital-intensive. And then you go to technology-driven. Why am I giving all these issues around here? The economy must know where it is, so that the policies, even if you may leapfrog and go to the other technology, etc., you have to start at the base and first stick there until you then graduate and go to the next. And I'm not saying you keep off growing on the rest in terms of skill and technology and capital intensive. I'm saying that we must be deliberate on creating labor-intensive industries, because this is an economic issue in terms of solution, but it's also a social one. The other point, as I go to the finish, I'll just give a few. For us to become like those countries, none of them grew on the basis of patronage. The biggest problem we have in our country now is patronage. Patronage is where we mix power and economy. Is it a coincidence in Kenya that when one is bequeathed with a big position, they automatically become the best entrepreneurs in Kenya, that they become also captains of the industries in terms of ownership? The other point, which we have to be very clear on, is governance and corruption. Yeah. Singapore, in the year 1980s, they had a program around housing. And the Minister for Housing took some money from somebody. And he was being searched by the equivalent of EACC. And because Lee Kuan Yew was his friend, he decided to call him. Hey, my friend, I'm in this kind of problem.
Can I come see you?
Can I come see you,
yes.
Lee Kuan Yew told him, malizana na EACC, mimi siendi pahali utaniona. Utaniona tu. The guy committed suicide. What am I trying to say? Jeff, and I'm talking this because I know for sure it is important. We have to root the diversion that happens around taking public resources and benefiting from policies when especially we are in governance. Because corruption is not just about kitu kidogo. The biggest level of corruption is the one that distorts economic incentives. Yeah. This is what I mean. In not just Kenya, most of the countries in the global south, you realize as a young man, if I just gain power, I get money in between. If you go to those countries, there is a clear demarcation. So what happens? Even the person who should be an entrepreneur, the biggest resource in entrepreneurship becomes power. Yeah. And that is not how an economy can grow to the level we want to go into. The very last one is human capital development. From the US, from the UK in terms of growth, actually from way back, you know, there is a time Netherlands was a superpower in the world. From Netherlands to the UK, to the US, coming to the Asian tigers, including China, you realize one critical element. In all economic models of those ones, practical examples, and even theoretically, human capital development is the most important resource that you have to work on when you're talking about growing an economy, not in a normal pace, astronomically. Okay. And we cannot do that when at the same time we are denying the basic level of that, which is basic education, sufficient resources.
Babu.
Yep, if I may,
go on,
the issue of Singapore.
Yes.
First of all, if I just talk at face value and compare Singapore and Kenya, Jeff, the size of Singapore is 736 square kilometer.
Is that central province? Is that smaller than?
The size of Nairobi is 696 square kilometers.
Wow.
Therefore, Singapore and Nairobi are almost congruent in size. The size of Kenya is 580,000 square kilometers. It means that Kenya is 800 times bigger than Singapore. Then the population of Kenya is 58 million in number, while the population of Singapore is 6.1 million in number. The GDP right now of Singapore is close to around 4.6% today. And the GDP of Kenya is approximately around between that 4 and 5%. Therefore, it means that how else will the 58 million Kenyans fit in Singapore, which is a smaller country in terms of size? Jeff, there is no need of the state, of the government, of the president talking about Singapore if we have a blueprint in Kenya. For 40 years when KANU was ruling this nation, by 2002, we had an economic growth rate. Actually, I'm talking about the economic growth rate, not the GDP. Of Singapore is 4.6, and of Kenya is around 5%. The economic growth rate of Kenya as at 2002 was at 2%. Then when Kibaki took over, the economic growth rate shot to 7%.
7.1, I remember. Yes.
7%.
Yes.
Then in 2008, Kibaki came up with a blueprint and called it the Vision 2030. We don't need to go to Singapore. I want us to focus here. The Vision 2030, having come up, the projection was that by the year 2013, it ought to have had a two-digit number, which was approximately 10%. And by the year 2030, it ought to have maintained that 10% and even more. With the blueprint that we have, we had 3 pillars. The economic pillar, that was comprising of tourism, that we were to market our nation, and we were to come up with proper infrastructure and proper hotel industry to attract tourism in our nation. Yep. We were to talk about manufacturing, that we invest more in manufacturing, in construction industry, in the service industry, which we have the banking and the insurance industry. We were also supposed to talk about the micro, that is retail and wholesale, micro and small, medium enterprises. That is the Juakali sector. and were to be financed through cooperatives and SACCOs. Very simple, Jeff. Then we had the economic sector, then we had the social sector. The social pillar was supposed to take care of education, providing quality and affordable education, if possible free, because there was free primary education. Then in addition to that, healthcare, primary healthcare, affordable and of great quality. We're talking about proper environment, sanitation, clean and sufficient supply of water. Simple things, Jeff. Then the last one is the political pillar, where we were talking about the justice system, reforms in the justice system. We were to talk about the reforms in the electoral process to give us proper leadership, not what we have now. We were to talk about the management of the political parties so that we don't have the problems we are experiencing with my brother Ndindi Nyoro today. Then, Jeff, before all that, we were advised that there were basic things that ought to have been done first before we implemented the three pillars, the economic, the political, and the social pillars. And they were simple. Number one, the security of a state. That in the security, we were supposed to have proper police reforms. My brother and I will tell you today that we don't have a police service. We have a police force up to date. The defense was supposed to be so stable to handle terrorism so that there's stable security. Not a nation that abducts her children where tourists will be scared of coming to invest here. Because the other day at Thika Law Courts, you charge over 50 Gen Zs with terrorism charges. You call them terrorists. How can a tourist, how can an investor come to invest in this nation that is full of, in quotes, terrorists? Then we talk about the macroeconomic stability, where the prices of goods and services were supposed to be stable before we do any other thing. Inflation, stable. We talk about exchange rates, stable. Then the next one was so simple that they only required us to do proper infrastructure in the country. For us to achieve the three economic pillars, infrastructure, energy. Energy, right now electricity we produce close to around 3,800 megawatts. Cannot run industrialization to grow a nation. Roads, airports, and ports. We were to talk about land reforms, Jeff. What can you do? Land is a factor of production in economics. The land reforms, the historical injustices were supposed to be cured. Look at a situation where a case involving dinner management versus the county government of Mombasa, where a parcel of land was sold to a person X, was given to the former President Moi. Then former President Moi sold it to a person X. A person X sold it to dinner management, a company. But that land was a public land. So the county government of Mombasa went to court. And it was resolved in an easy way, where the basic principles of the torrent system came up. The mirror principle, the curtain principle, the insurable principle. They came out clearly. We needed to solve such issues. We needed to talk about what my brother has talked about, the human capital development, matter skills. We train our people in matter skills so that we can have better masons. We can have better plumbers. We can have better engineers. Training of people properly to achieve this. But Jeff, we ran away from all that. Then we come and tell you that, it was bottom up. We ran away from the blueprint, we said bottom up. That bottom up promised a mama mboga to graduate from a kiosk into owning a supermarket. From a boda rider riding a boda to owning a matatu. Not done yet, still in abeyance, suspended. Right now, we are talking about going to Singapore. We cannot go to Singapore, Jeff, if we can't provide the basics to a common human being in Kenya. Basic needs. We cannot go to Singapore when a common man is hungry. Jeff, a man, a woman toils, moils, wakes up very early in the morning. A dad going to Juakali. Our brothers riding a bicycle. Our mothers selling mama mboga. Some selling changa like my mother. Jeff, if you see women in a construction site carrying stones and shovel, working tirelessly, so that they can just get their next meal, so that they can just get their rent for the next month, so that they can get school fee for their children, so that they can get affordable education for their children. Jeff, what has happened with us? Where is the morality in us as leaders that we want to see Kenyans suffer and we still want to go to Singapore? Will you be going to Singapore with hungry people? Feed Kenyans first. Let them have energy. Then they will have a way to go to Singapore. They even know where Singapore is. You will not take them. They will go by themselves.
They will know.
Yes.
But you know, Rwanda will get to Singapore before us. Let's face it. You mentioned it. Double-digit growth.
Yes.
They'll get there before us. And by the way, Uganda is as small as Singapore. And Kagame has always been saying, Lee Kuan Yew, he drove that country the way Kagame is doing it.
And the beauty is that all those cases, it was deliberate.
Yeah.
Let's even not jump there. If you go, for example, to a country like China, how it grew, from around 1978, coming all the way, Deng Xiaoping's time, deliberate. If you go to, in terms of General Park in South Korea, deliberate policy. Simple line, one. South Korea was export-led economy. Just that. So everything else that the economy was doing, every production, was industrialization, which is based on exporting.
So maybe, gentlemen, let's forget about Singapore. Let's go to South Korea.
Jeff, I said the other day.
Pick a country.
Because I've been in those political issues.
Yes. Hold on. Hold that thought, Mheshimiwa. Because I want to come and talk about that. And also, where did you get this money to educate all these children in your constituency? Where's the money coming from?
I came with some chapos, I'll give you.
And gentlemen, also, both of you. In fact, I have a message here from David Ole Sankok.
A great man.
A good man, a fantastic man. Sankok says, Jeff, you are speaking. Here we go. Today you are hosting the president and his running mate. Sankok amesema hivyo. Gentlemen, think about it, man. Think about it.
The future is
it's bright.
Yes, very bright.
I have to wear shades.
Very bright.
It's very bright.
Yeah.
Folks, I told you, the young Turks speaking without fear of contradiction. Maybe this is what we need going forward as a nation. What do you think? We're going to take a break, come back, plenty more ahead. We have Ndindi Nyoro in the House, Member of Parliament for Kiharu, and Babu Owino, Member of Parliament for Embakasi East. Pretty soon, it could be Mr. President and his deputy. Question is, who is whom? Keep tweeting at Kwenangi Jeff at O'Burrows at Citizen TV. Can you hashtag? Check it live. Check it live. Take a break. We'll be back in a moment.